So here's the current project I'm working on. This is Nyx, the Goddess of the Night from the video game Hades. And then I have this idea of framing her in this blue color and having it come up in an arch and kind of come to a point up there and then come back down around the side. And my idea is to have this archway basically painted completely black, and then I'm going to do what I call reverse sketching. I don't know what the official name is, but basically you let the paint dry, and then I'm going to come in with a bamboo skewer and sort of scratch out some of that dried paint and add some artwork. And what I'm picturing is sort of like a wrought iron sort of look, sort of some swirly S shapes, and then also some leaves coming out of there. So it's sort of a cross between swirly wrought iron and like a vine sort of look, and have that sort of trace all the way around. We're going to use a very similar method to what we did here with her forearm. This was originally a completely yellow piece, just like these up here, painted completely black. Same process. We let the paint completely dry and then come in with that bamboo skewer and sort of scratch out, or like I said, reverse sketch these lines and the highlights, and then that gets fired in the kiln so that the paint fuses with the surface of the glass and becomes a permanent part of the glass. We're gonna have to make this completely black. That can be a tricky process to do with stained glass. We're gonna be using our Rocher style paint. This is a finely ground glass paint. This is actually glass that's ground into a very fine powder. We turn that into a paint, paint that on the glass, and then the glass goes in the kiln until the surface melts so that the quote-unquote paint, this ground glass, fuses with the surface of this glass and becomes a permanent part of it. Now, what we mix this with can have different effects. In experimenting with this, the first couple of times I tried this, I would have to paint it black, and then put it in the kiln, fire it, which takes pretty much the whole day, and then the next day I'd have to paint another layer, because obviously it's going to take more than one layer to achieve a true opaque black. So that process would take quite a while, having to fuse it in the kiln over and over again. But then I discovered this product. It's called layering mix. And this allows you to paint a layer, let it dry completely, and then it sort of hardens onto the surface of the glass so that then you can come in and do another layer without having to fire it in the kiln. What I've found recently really works for me is I do one layer with this layering mix, so that first layer hardens onto the surface of the glass, and then the second layer, or any additional layers, I'll do with propylene glycol as the mixing medium for the paint. This gives me a really soft, smooth finish on the final layer. So even if my layering mix ends up, being somewhat uneven in that first layer, having that final layer be a propylene glycol mix just tends to result in a very smooth finish, and that's what we did with this hairpiece. So we're going to start with cutting up some Rocher paint, mixing that with our layering mix, and applying it all in a thick layer to this piece and letting it dry. So let's get started. Okay, now the first step in painting the glass itself is going to be cleaning the glass. I've been handling this, so there's lots of fingerprints and natural oils, probably some dust on there. I'm just going to give it a simple wipe at first. I found that the best way to clean a piece of glass, or prepare it really for painting, is to actually use the paint itself. Whatever type of paint you're using, just get a little bit on the brush and just really spread that around. And that tends to sort of cut through those oils and fingerprints, and it allows, you see it's kind of resistant to spreading right now, but as this is applied, it becomes easier for the glass to spread. Now, this particular medium, this layering mix, is water-based, so it dries very quickly because we're using very thin layers. This is already dry. This is completely dry. So I'm now going to take a towel and rub that off. It's kind of hard to see probably in the video, but the texture of this is not perfectly smooth. It's almost muddy. I would describe it as muddy, whereas the propylene glycol, when we make that mixture next, you'll see it's a very smooth, glossy, very spreadable medium. Okay, we're just going to go ahead and apply this liberally and very quickly, because again, this is water-based. It will dry in seconds. We don't need to go super thick with it. This is just sort of the base coat to start making it more opaque. It's really going to be that final layer with the propylene glycol that's going to truly make this black. As good as I'm going to be able to get it. I've already pretty much run out of time. If I keep working that, I'm just going to be rubbing off paint that's already drying. So we have to work quickly, not looking for perfection at this point, just trying to get a nice, reasonably thick layer down. Okay, we're going to go ahead and let that dry. I'm going to speed up the process with a hair dryer, clean up all of this, and then we're going to come back and apply our second coat using the propylene glycol. So I've now hit these with a blow dryer for a few minutes. I do it on low first, and then I do it on high. I basically do it until the glass itself is hot to the touch, like difficult to pick up. So we've gone through that process. It's still quite warm, and you'll see, even though it's still got a little bit of blue when it's on the light board, in the light, it's kind of this really dull gray now, and that's exactly what you want to see, is this really dull gray color. Once this is fired in the kiln, that gray will literally melt because it's a glass powder, remember. So when you reach glass fusion temperatures around 1200 degrees, that will melt along with the surface of the glass, and when it melts, it'll turn into that nice glossy black again. We have finished with our layering mix. Now we're going to move on to our second layer using my somewhat recent discovery of this lovely propylene glycol product. So again, it's probably hard to see on the camera, but I've got a much smoother, softer paint here. It's even in the light, it's much glossier in the reflections. It doesn't have that sort of muddy, grainy quality. So it's just so much easier to work with, and because this propylene glycol is already a little bit thick, it makes this final bit of paint very spreadable. So I really like it, and it's really helped me get better at painting on glass. Okay, so we've finished painting our pieces. I'm really happy with the way these came out. They're very opaque, very dark. So we'll go ahead and let it dry and take a quick look at it, make sure that we're happy with the depth of the black and how opaque it is, and then we'll get to our reverse sketching. dried out our pieces. We've got this nice, very dull gray color to them now. These are quite hot to the touch. I had to have the hair dryer on high for about 10 minutes, blasting directly on this to fully dry that propylene glycol. It takes a while. So now comes the fun part. Now we're going to get to the reverse sketching. So we're just kind of doing this free form. It's kind of just an idea in my head that we're going to kind of experiment with. This may or may not be the final product. I'm leaning toward it not being the final product, just so I don't put that kind of pressure on myself. I want to feel comfortable just sort of seeing how this comes out. So let's get to it. Again, I have this idea of doing kind of a wrought iron look. So I'm picturing like an S sort of swirly shape coming down here, kind of coming down to a swirl here, and then maybe adding a few leaves, some other textural elements. But what I really want to see is how this sort of deep blue looks coming through this black opaque background. Okay, as a test of an idea, I would call that successful. I'm happy with the way that's come out. I like that electric blue. I think that's going to work nicely with our piece. I'm going to go ahead and keep working on this. I'm going to add maybe another leaf down here. I got some other pieces that I want to continue the motif, pop those into Nyx, and then I want to drag all of this onto a glass table that I have and put some light behind it. We can see what the final product looks like and see if this works well contextually with the rest of the project. So these pieces are ready to go. They've been fired in the kiln now, and I'm really happy with how they've come out. You can see where before that paint had like a really dull gray finish. Now that it's been fired in the kiln, it's got this nice glossy sheen to it. The gray has turned into this nice, rich, deep black. This is the piece that had a couple of ripples from the blow dryer, but those have smoothed out quite a bit. Yeah, I'm really pleased with the result here. Let's go ahead and place this. And I think this blue is going to tie in really nicely with the rest of the character. It kind of calls into some of these other blue elements that she has. So we're going to go ahead and continue this design into this archway. So we're going to go all the way up and around, and she's going to be completely framed in this sort of elegant electric blue motif. I think it's going to look really nice.